Well, I happen to be here at Harris Teeter at midnight. The store is closed. So, I thought I would go do something different for a change. And yes, it's nearly 4 o'clock. Excuse me, it is 4:20 in the morning here. So, yeah, I'm up early. I've got a pretty good topic here that might be of interest to some people because of the nature of the topic, which a lot of people are very worried and shy to talk about. Homosexuality or same-sex relationship, and which is it? It's a difficult topic, but it's one that is worth talking about, and there is a lot of fine points to bring up and to mention. Let's see here. I did kind of write down some notes and stuff, so bear with me here. The point of this video is to help give you tools to identify which is which, because I am seeing a very clear distinction between the two, and this is after a year and a half of conversation, of notes, and of the stories I've read and listened to, the people I've talked to, friends of friends, and there's relationships here that separate themselves from this. There are stories that separate the relationships from the acts, and it's important to note that who talks about what is what gives the same-sex relationship the different distinction between that and a lifestyle. A relationship versus a lifestyle. Alright, let me start off with this. There are those other verses, and I will make sure to put all the Bible verses down below at the bottom as far as referencing. I will not talk about the ones that are more public, but I will reference them down below. 2 Corinthians 6:14, do not be unequally bound together. And 1 Corinthians 13:4-7, and it talks about what love is and how to see it. This is important because the main difference between the two, as I said, homosexuality and a relationship, is a loving, committed relationship versus sexual acts where they are designed to fulfill pleasure. Now, you could break it down however which way you want. You could expand upon that. You could go farther, but that's not the intention of this video. My intent is to give tools to help you recognize and understand which is which. Alright. The differences between the two. As I said before, a lifestyle versus a relationship. A lifestyle is going to look along lines of of the person visiting the partner or the other partners so they could satisfy their own desires, whether it just be sex or whatever. Now, a committed relationship is going to look along lines of marriage, which the Bible holds as a standard. It talks about that repeatedly in multiple verses about how, now in the New Testament it does refer a little bit differently about responsibilities and about how the husband has responsibilities for the wife and the wife is supposed to be submissive to the husband. It talks about that as far as the roles within marriage. Marriage itself is a standard because it sets the tone for what is normal and what is biblical. There's other qualities that make it admirable and that make it valuable. And as far as the lifestyle goes, again, it basically boils down to sexual acts. Let's see. What is normal? This is a good point because in the confines of some of the communities and people I've talked to, abuse has been rampant, where their early childhood has grown up in a broken home with one parent, the other being removed or just being out of the picture because they did not care. And this is on both sexes. Now, when it comes down to sexual abuse, it seems that the common factor is the father or of the boyfriend of the mother. So normal becomes very radically different in the sense that you do not see what the person does not see what a loving family is and how they should grow up. Their role is undefined and very confused and is marred by personal opinions and failures of the single parent, as far as I've been able to determine. So normal is very messed up. And when abuse is introduced, it changes the entire dynamics of what you would consider to be normal, what you'd consider to be a healthy relationship or a healthy lifestyle. Let's see here. There's another good point. Family or pleasure? Are you focusing on your future? Are you focusing on having people around you or people who you can influence or impact, or a family that you can have? Or are you doing this simply because it's fun, it's pleasurable, and you are getting some sort of kick out of this? I mean, there are people who are very addicted to the feelings and the emotions that come with it, so that should be pointed out. When sex is introduced, let's just say there's a lot that you can be chemically addicted to, because sex has been pointed out by quite a few people nowadays where it messes with you chemically within your brain. So it literally becomes a drug. Chasing after pleasure is very different than actually chasing after it will lead you down the path where you can become addicted, and overindulging, not saying no, it leads down a path that just gets worse and worse and worse. In a very similar matter, just like with everything else, overindulgence without any sort of control or boundaries, it just degenerates and gets worse over time. Alright, let's see here. I already said that marriage was a standard, or is held like a standard, if not actually being a standard by what the Bible says. Now, changing from humans to animals, there were some points here that I found on Wikipedia and another site that was interesting. Over 450 species have been documented with same-sex encounters, not necessarily relationships, but encounters. And it's interesting because it's poorly under... Okay, let's see what it says here. Motivating factors are poorly understood, as well as the sexuality. They're also largely irrelevant outside of humans. So that's why I wrote down here. Let's see. It is coined, homosexual is coined by Carl Maria Kertbeny. I think that's how you say it. Kertbeny in 1868 to describe same-sex sexual attraction and sexual behavior in humans. So while that is not directly related to what I just said, the point I'm trying to get to here is with animal studies, with over 450 species that are documented here, it gets very confusing very quickly. So being able to identify which is which is important. But animals within the animals, it seems that it's more for alliances, to confuse other males, and distractions. Beyond that, it's just of note and opinion as far as what has been observed within that particular species. So this is it seems to be very different in species outside of humans, because this ties in more than just social interactions and what is within the culture or what is acceptable. So, interesting points to note that probably are largely irrelevant to your life, but are still important to point out regardless. The last point I want to bring up here is with what Matthew Vine said in his video, which I will also link down below as far as a source. There's been the idea presented here was what exactly is normal and an interpretation between a lifestyle and a relationship, which I am simply pointing out for this video. You can take and make what of it as you will. There's a lot here to talk about. Some of it is going to be relevant, while most of it will not. Most people do not have this interest or any sort of, they're not invested in this at all. If you are a parent and you have a kid, a son or a daughter who is struggling, who came out as bi or liking the same sex, this should be somewhat helpful to you, because if you can understand the nature and where they are confused at, maybe you can point them in the right direction. It takes the proper tools in order to do that, and if you don't have the proper tools, you're going to be lost just as much as they are. You cannot necessarily change someone's attractions, but what you can do is point out and give them a solid foundation with which to follow and to build upon. That is the role of a parent. In particular, that is the role of fathers. Boundaries and limitations to help them understand what is right and what is wrong. Let's see here. Within the Bible, which many Christians talk about, with this whole no sleeping, no being with the same sex, they largely just dump it under homosexuality, where they fail to, or they don't know the difference between a lifestyle as well as a relationship. When you are in a committed relationship, and again I go back to marriage here as far as a good standard, marriage itself, it is supposed to be protected. It is supposed to be where both the husband and the wife, the mother and the father, where they communicate and they talk, and they are actively working in their life. And when children are introduced, because I believe a family is made for children because it is a good and healthy and safe environment for them. And when it comes down to it, if the mother and father, and if they are working on their issues, they are working on their problems, there is going to be a foundation that can be built upon and talked about that is passed on to the child. So there should be less confusion. And I believe there are other studies that can confirm that if the father is active in both the daughter and son's life, there's going to be more stability and less issues and less interest in dating until later down the road, like around 18, 20 years, when they are of age to date and to start relationships themselves. So the need for attention, the need for a relationship is simply, it's being taken care of by the parents, so to speak, because there is love that is needed, there is attention that is also needed, and these can actually be fulfilled by the parents. When it comes down to sexual desires and attractions, those take time to develop, but if they are brought up too early, it's usually done through something along the lines of pornography that is introduced, that they find themselves attracted to and chasing after. That is where unhealthy attachments, emotional attachments, as well as unhealthy life choices are made, like spending money on websites and other porn and just simply blowing it all and making very unwise choices there. These choices will then lead to addictions. Now, I would point out for the one factor here that should be pointed out, porn gets worse over time. If you do not control it, which most people don't, you don't control or limit it, it will get worse. And your same appetite will change. It not only gets worse, but it changes. So you need different types of porn to satisfy your desires. And that is where this whole shift can take place later down the road, is because of this whole being a sex addict and being too addicted to pornography that you end up changing. That is one aspect that I wanted to mention as well. But going back to families and having a solid foundation there, if you can work on the foundation, you should be able to take care of most of these issues and questions that will pop up. Alright, that is it. I hope this was helpful and informative. Some of these are very complicated thoughts that they take some time to work out and to work through. Alright, until the next video.